Alright, so guys, in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the craziest weather college football games of recent memory. This includes snow games, rain games, fog games, wind games, and any kind of game that had some crazy weather that I remember or I was able to look up. Beginning with just this last year, we did have the Iowa State Kansas State super random heavy snow game where it was just disgusting snow. They couldn't get that stuff off of the field. It was almost like icy snow and it was sticking to guys' helmets. But this game was just outrageous. You take a look at the score. 42 to 35. Obviously, that's pretty ridiculous considering snow was on the field, like a half an inch at least was on the field throughout the entire game, and it was constantly snowing. So to see a game this high scoring in and of itself is ridiculous. But Iowa State, the efficiency, it was completely historic. Their running back goes for 276 on 16 carries, but look at the actual stats. Iowa State had 10 first downs and basically 500 yards of total offense. They had the ball for 18 minutes. Kansas State, they ran like 80 plays. It was just a really strange game based on the weather. But yeah, Iowa State beat Kansas State, and hey, that's Will Howard, now the Ohio State starting quarterback, starting for Kansas State. He went 24 of 48, and Kansas State's running back had 31 carries. I mean, they just had the ball forever because Iowa State kept getting like 70-yard touchdowns. Just a strange game. This was back in 2016, and this was kind of a random, late in the game snowstorm that happened. Most of this game was played dry, but Michigan beat Indiana. This was Michigan's really good 2016 team that set up the big game, the 2v3 matchup, Ohio State versus Michigan. That was the spot with JT Barrett, the Curtis Samuel walk-off touchdown in overtime. But this was a really good Michigan team. If you guys remember, Michigan ended up playing in the Orange Bowl and losing to FSU. That was the Dalvin Cook team. But yeah, just kind of a random end of the season game right before Michigan is getting ready for Ohio State. Kind of just a block game, and Michigan wins 20 to 10. John O'Korn, my goodness, 7 of 16 for 59 yards. Michigan was just trying to get out of there with a win, and then it started heavy snowing in the fourth quarter to where you couldn't even see the field. The next one, this is an Army-Navy game from 2017. Now, honestly, the Army-Navy is the one weird situation where snow actually might help them score more points because whether it's snow, rain, or sun, they're just going to run the ball. And there's a crazy thing where there's been like 20 straight Army-Navy games that have gone under in terms of the total points. But yeah, Army-Navy, Malcolm Perry goes crazy. 30 carries, 250 yards, a touchdown, but Navy ends up losing. Army finished that year 9-3. They were very good that season, and you had some snow on the field there. This is a rare Ohio State snow game. So this would have been 2013 Ohio State 42-14 against Indiana. Braxton Miller, 13 carries, 144, 2 touchdowns. It was snowing throughout. And normally you don't get much snow in November in Columbus, and it wasn't like accumulated a ton, but it was technically snowing, and there was snow on the field. That Ohio State team ended up losing to Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game when it was the Legends versus Leaders division. That's how those two teams were able to meet up. And Ohio State would have, if they would have beaten Michigan State, they would have appeared in the final BCS national championship, but they lost to MSU. This is just kind of a random action game. So like a random Tuesday night last year or in 2022, I believe, Western Michigan wins 12-10 against Central Michigan. I thought I would throw it in there. I think that Western Michigan quarterback ended up transferring to Arizona State, I want to say. But yeah, I do remember this game. I was like flipping through channels and I was like, what is going on? Just randomly in early November, a big snowstorm. And they don't even try and, blow it off the field. It's the MAC. Just leave it on there. Oh, this one. So this was the final game of the regular season. Remember when they tried to make this rivalry a thing? I mean, Penn State calls themselves unrivaled, but they tried to make Michigan State and Penn State rivals and have them face off in the final game of the season. And there was a pretty bad snowstorm. This was when Michigan State They were coming off that crazy loss to Ohio State when they had Kenneth Walker, and this was like Kenneth Walker's crazy big year. Remember, Michigan State beat Michigan at home, and Kenneth Walker had like 4 rushing touchdowns. But yeah, this was pretty brutal weather throughout the entire game. Sean Clifford randomly out of nowhere goes for 313 and 3 passing touchdowns. Jahad Dotson, yeah, he was a beast in college, especially when he was an upperclassman. He had 8 catches, 137, and 2 touchdowns in the snow. MSU ends up winning, and that propelled MSU to go to a New Year's Six Bowl. That was Mel Tucker's only good year with MSU. The Hurricane game, NC State versus Notre Dame. This was Notre Dame's season from hell. They went 4-8. This was the year DeShone Kizer started, and I don't know what Notre Dame was doing in this game. How is DeShone Kizer attempting 26 passes? I mean, at some point, in a game like this where the weather is just so bad to where you can see puddles accumulating on the field, trying to throw the ball, it's like you're trying to swim up water or swim upstream. It's just not going to work. 9 of 26 for 54 yards and an interception. And NC State ends up winning this game 10-3. This game really should have been canceled or postponed, really just postponed till Sunday or whenever, because it was just ridiculous. It was outrageous. It was not football. There were 30 fumbles. And it kind of just ended up being based around like luck, who fell on the ball, where, did the bounce go your way? It was ridiculous. But I mean, it makes for a good game. And overall, the game would have been irrelevant if they would have moved it to Sunday. So at least I'm talking about it. This is just a random game I found from, I believe, 2013. Oregon hosting Cal. This was when Cal was sitting at 1-3. Oregon went up really early in this game, Autzen Stadium, a lot of rain in the Pacific Northwest, and it was storming throughout this entire, or not storming, just, it was like that annoying type of rain, and it did affect Marcus Mariota. He was under 50% in terms of completion percentage, but Oregon just crushed Cal 55-16, just a completely irrelevant 10:30 start time on the Pac-12 network that literally nobody remembers. And then you've got some fog games. You can see this is just an FCS game. Yeah, there's been quite a few fog games recently through the years, and then this was the most famous one. So this is when Florida was like on the verge of making the playoff. It was that crazy 2020 season where SEC teams faced each other like so many times, and they ended up fully playing 12-game seasons, and the Big Ten teams, they'd have cancellations and they didn't start until like early October. But yeah, Kyle Trask was ridiculous this year. And even in this game, Kyle Trask had almost 500 passing yards. But LSU, who was coming off a national title going into 2020, they were not good. They were sitting at 3-5 going into this game. And they won, and you had the shoe throw, and they couldn't even put the camera in its proper position because the fog was so bad. They had to put it behind the quarterback, like kind of the Madden perspective. And that was how the game was watched, because the fog was so bad, and it kind of just rolled in out of nowhere. That's very strange for Gainesville to have that type of fog randomly, late in the year, just at night. But yeah, that's what happened. That's kind of just the weird thing about the 2020 season. And here was the crazy wind game of the Ohio State Northwestern game. I had to look back. Ohio State was minus 37.5 in this game. They were ranked number 2, and you just couldn't throw the ball. It was crazy what came in off the lake for this game. 21-7, anemic offense for both teams. Ohio State, really the score wasn't even representative. It should have been like 10-7. It was just a struggle to do anything for Ohio State. And I would say that's what lost C.J. Stroud the Heisman, but I mean, even if C.J. Stroud throws 5 touchdowns in this game, if you lose to Michigan, you're not winning the Heisman, let's be honest. This weird Alabama-South Florida game where Bama went on the road and there was like lightning, there were thunderstorms, but it never felt like it really downpoured during the game. This was week 3 of this year where people were like assuming that they benched Jalen Milroe for something because Jalen Milroe wasn't playing. I mean, I guess Jalen Milroe was struggling. He was coming off that Texas loss, but Alabama's backup QBs, Tyler Buchner, the transfer from Notre Dame, started. Just a really strange game, really mucky game. Alabama ends up winning 17-3, but it wasn't like it was downpouring during the game. They had a weather delay like late in the second quarter, and then they had halftime, so the game just came to a complete grinding halt, and the cameramen couldn't be at their posts, so they had to use this like overhead camera for parts of the second quarter as well. And then this was just some weird weather before the game. Ohio State and Oklahoma. This game actually got delayed. It didn't start until 9:10 Eastern time, and it apparently downpoured before this game. But nobody really remembers it because the entire game was played dry. But pregame in Norman, Oklahoma, apparently in mid-September, they got some crazy storms, but it just didn't affect the game because they delayed the game because of lightning strikes around the area. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.